September 21st, 2014. A 22-year-old hiker raises his phone on a New Jersey trail and captures something no one should see this close: a 300-pound black bear closing the distance. Those images, recovered from a punctured phone case, are among the last he ever took. 7 people die every week across America's national parks, falls, drownings, wildlife, heat. And what the footage left behind keeps revealing is how fast an ordinary trail moment becomes the last one. Darsh Patel set out with 4 friends on a Sunday afternoon in New Jersey's Upshawa Preserve, a forest managed by the state's Division of Fish and Wildlife. Just over an hour into their hike, the group noticed a black bear, estimated at around 300 pounds, watching from a distance. Patel, a 22-year-old Rutgers student, raised his phone and began taking photos as the animal drew closer. The final images captured the bear behind a fallen log, then advancing, then standing on its hind legs. What happened next is pieced together from police records and the phone itself, recovered about 2 hours later with a puncture through the case, evidence of the bear's teeth making contact. Patel's friends lost sight of him as they tried to retreat. The phone preserved the final moments before the attack, but not the attack itself. The Upshawa Preserve is not a national park, but the risks echo those found on trails nationwide. Focusing on a camera or closing the gap for a better photo can erase the space needed to react. In those seconds, attention to wildlife becomes a hazard of its own. On the final approach to Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, the trail narrows to a ridge just a few feet wide, with drops approaching 1,000 feet on both sides. Steel chains are anchored along the spine, offering hand support for hikers navigating the exposed section. But these chains are not a fall arrest system. They help with balance, not rescue. In April 2026, a 68-year-old hiker from Laredo, Texas, reportedly lost his footing on this very stretch. The Utah Office of the Medical Examiner identified him as Gilberto Ramos. Rescue teams reached the scene within half an hour, but the outcome was already clear. Official counts of Angel's Landing fatalities vary. Some sources cite at least 18 deaths, others 16, with most involving falls. What is certain is that even with the chains, every step demands controlled movement and constant reassessment, especially when passing others, yielding space, or facing wind, rain, or fatigue. On this ridge, a single misstep leaves no margin for recovery. In July 2024, Grace Roloff, age 20, began her descent from Yosemite's Half Dome summit with her father, just as a thunderstorm swept over the mountain. The cable section, a steep stretch of 400 feet anchored by steel handrails, became treacherous in minutes as rainwater slicked the polished granite. Roloff slipped partway down, falling an estimated 200 to 250 feet to the base below, according to park reports and multiple news sources. Yosemite's Rescue 7 team reached the site within 15 minutes, but she could not be revived. The cable route is infamous for its exposure and the way weather can instantly change the margin for error. While some reports claim 25 deaths on the cables and summit by 2026, and that 6 of 10 cable-related falls happened on wet granite, these numbers are drawn from secondary sources and await confirmation from official National Park Service logs. A trail safety specialist explains that water drastically reduces friction between shoes and granite, especially on a slope. Even with the cables for support, a wet surface offers little grip, and fatigue or a backward step can make recovery impossible. Permits, ranger warnings, and technical footwear all matter, but when storms approach, the only safe choice is to turn around before the hazard becomes inescapable. A viral clip from July 2026 captures the mist trail at its most crowded, hikers pressed shoulder to shoulder, inching up spray-soaked granite steps toward Vernal Fall. The stone is slick from waterfall mist, and the staircase narrows so tightly that passing becomes nearly impossible. Each person moves at the pace of the group, unable to stop or turn around without bumping elbows or risking a slip near the exposed edge. The pressure of the crowd, sometimes described in media as a wall of hikers, can make people hurry, copy the person ahead, or take chances they wouldn't consider alone. Reported visitor numbers for the summer stretch into the tens of thousands, but official trail counts are not published. Claims of 14 deaths at Vernal Fall over a decade circulate online, yet these are not confirmed by National Park Service records. What the footage does show is that popularity offers no safety guarantee. On steep, wet steps crowded with strangers, a single misstep can ripple through the line before anyone has time to react. At Glacier National Park's Avalanche Creek Gorge, 3 visitors stepped onto the rocks above the rushing water, pausing for a selfie. In a moment, one lost balance and fell, drawing the others into the current as they tried to help. Park staff and nearby hikers responded immediately, performing CPR on 2 of the victims for nearly 20 minutes before paramedics arrived. The incident, officially described in a National Park Service release, is dated July 2025, though some accounts reference July 2024, a discrepancy that remains unresolved in public records. The setting, smooth, wet rock near fast-moving water, left little room for error, and the distraction of composing a photo may have pulled attention from the risk underfoot. Weeks later, on Glacier's Highline Trail, Diane Bunker, age 73, fell approximately 450 feet between Big Bend and Triple Arches. Trail logs noted loose or unstable rock in the area. Bunker's fall did not involve distraction or crowding, but rather a single misstep at elevation, where the margin for recovery vanishes. Both incidents highlight how quickly conditions can turn deadly, whether from a moment's inattention or a hidden hazard beneath the next step. In May 2026, Anthony Polio, a 33-year-old hiker from Davie, Florida, was found below the Mount Brown Trail in Glacier National Park. Early reports placed his body about 70 feet down a steep slope, though some accounts refer to a 93-foot initial tumble. The trauma was described by investigators as consistent with a grizzly bear encounter, but the full sequence remains under review by the National Park Service, the Board of Review, and the local coroner. An empty bear spray canister was reportedly found nearby. This incident stands out as Glacier's first confirmed fatal grizzly attack in nearly 30 years, a reminder that while black bear and grizzly encounters demand similar caution, the risks and recommended responses differ. Bear spray is most effective when carried in an accessible holster, not buried in a pack, and group awareness, including food and scent management, can reduce the odds of a surprise encounter. Even with proper precautions, wildlife behavior is never fully predictable. The specifics of Polio's actions and the deployment of his bear spray remain unconfirmed. On July 19, 2011, 3 visitors, David Hormes, Yakub Ninos, and Badal Ramina, stood above Vernal Fall on Yosemite's Mist Trail. The river looked calm at the edge, marked by metal railings and warning signs. According to eyewitnesses and the National Park Service, the trio crossed the barrier and entered the Merced River, aiming for the water about 25 feet from the brink. The current, running at roughly 6 miles per hour due to late spring runoff, was far stronger than it appeared. Within seconds, all 3 lost their footing. The water pulled them downstream, faster and faster. No time to recover, no chance to swim back. The drop ahead was 317 feet straight down. Bystanders shouted, but the current was already in control. Search and rescue teams responded, closing the mist trail as they searched below the falls. All 3 were later confirmed dead. The NPS added new warnings, but the lesson remains. Railings mark the edge of control. Once past them, the river decides what happens next. This event is often cited as a reason the Mist Trail is known as Yosemite's deadliest corridor. On June 29, 2024, Scott Sims, a 69-year-old from Austin, Texas, was making his way along the Grand Canyon's river trail toward Phantom Ranch. The temperature hovered near 94 degrees, with dry air and little shade along the exposed path. Around 7 p.m., Sims collapsed. Within 2 minutes, bystanders began CPR. 3 National Park Service paramedics arrived soon after, but as night fell, helicopter evacuation became impossible. Sims was moved by ground to a park medical clinic, where resuscitation efforts continued but did not succeed. The official record does not specify an exact cause of death, but the circumstances point to exertional heat illness, a risk that rises with high temperatures, low humidity, and strenuous activity. The return climb from the river is long and steep, and once committed to the descent, reversing course becomes a challenge. Hydration, pacing, and the ability to recognize early symptoms of heat stress are essential, yet even experienced hikers can be caught out by the cumulative strain. Delayed access to advanced medical care on remote trails adds to the danger. Over the past 130 years, an estimated 135 people have died on the Bright Angel Corridor, with nearly half of those deaths occurring in summer. Route planning, reliable emergency communication, and sharing your itinerary with someone before entering remote terrain are among the key steps that can save lives on trails where help is often hours away. Across all National Park Service lands, an average of approximately 243 visitor deaths are recorded each year, according to the NPS mortality dashboard covering a recent 6-year span. These figures include every type of visitor activity: driving, boating, swimming, climbing, and hiking, not just incidents on trails. Drowning, motor vehicle crashes, and falls are the leading categories, together accounting for the majority of fatalities. The same dataset shows that about 83% of those who die on NPS lands are male, a pattern observed consistently between 2014 and 2019. These numbers represent annual averages, not raw counts from a single year, and they reflect the full range of environments managed by the NPS, from city-adjacent parks to remote wilderness. Risk factors such as solo travel and high-risk activities like backcountry climbing or whitewater rafting appear frequently in the official analysis. These are treated as risk management categories, not judgments about individual victims. When considering mortality rates, it's important to distinguish between the total number of deaths, the average per year, and the much lower risk specific to any single trail. The data provide a broad context for understanding how rare, but real, these tragedies are within the millions of annual park visits. In early May 2024, several news outlets circulated a claim that at least 5 hikers died on national park trails within a single week. The stories named 2 friends who reportedly drowned at Rainbow Falls in Tennessee, a teenager at Tallulah Gorge in Georgia, and a hiker in Zion National Park. The impression was of a sudden nationwide spike, a pattern that seemed to echo the dangers already described on America's most popular trails. Yet, when the National Park Service's own incident dashboard and local reporting were checked, no documented 5 fatality cluster could be found for the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2024. Each tragedy was real, but the records did not confirm a coordinated surge or a unique week-long pattern. Instead, the data remained steady. The NPS dashboard shows an average of about 7 deaths per week across all lands it manages, a figure that covers every activity from hiking to driving. The agency's safety campaigns, like Know Before You Go and Turn Around, Don't Drown, remind visitors that risk is always present, but that dramatic montages can blur the difference between a single, tragic week and the broader, verified reality. For this particular week, the cluster remains an unverified claim. Today, national park trails remain both sanctuary and proving ground. Even with clear warnings and official numbers, risk hides in routine decisions and fleeting moments. As millions return each season, awareness, not just adventure, becomes the real survival skill. The margin between awe and aftermath is always thinner than it seems.